Ever notice how you just kind of know instantly when you hit a putt off center,
Oh, yeah.
and then you watch as your perfectly aimed putt comes up short or veers offline?
Ah.
Frustrating, right?
Yeah.
We all want to understand our game better, but sometimes the data can feel pretty overwhelming.
Right.
So that's what we're tackling today. We're
Yeah.
doing a deep dive into impact ratio in putting.
Absolutely.
And what happens when you don't hit the ball right in the sweet spot of the putter face?
Hmm.
To really understand this, we've got some incredible data from product testing that was actually done just this week
Interesting.
by a propeller manufacturer.
Really?
I know it sounds strange,
It does.
but trust me, the data is gold.
Okay.
And while we can't reveal their name,
Mm-hmm.
trade secrets and all,
Of course.
this deep dive is going to give you a way clearer picture
Okay.
of why hitting the sweet spot is so important.
Got it.
So we're going to break down what actually happens between your putter and the ball
Yeah.
and show you how it impacts your success without having to wade through pages of technical reports.
Love it.
So first off, let's talk about impact ratio.
Okay.
You might have heard this term. Maybe you've seen it when you're getting your stroke analyzed with one of those Quintic systems.
Yeah.
Basically, it's the speed of the ball coming off the putter face
Mm-hmm.
divided by the speed of the putter head right before impact.
Makes sense.
So in putting an impact ratio below 1.6 is considered low.
Okay.
Typically, you're going to see numbers between 1.6 and 1.8,
Right.
and anything above 1.8 is considered high.
So that means the ball's really jumping off the face.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
To give you a concrete example,
Yeah.
let's say you swing the putter at a consistent speed of 4 miles per hour.
Okay.
If your impact ratio is a low 1.5, the ball will only come off at 6 miles per hour.
Interesting.
But bump that ratio up to 1.7, which is pretty standard,
Mm.
and you're looking at 6.8 miles per hour.
Okay.
And if you have that high impact ratio of 1.9,
Mm.
that ball's going to zip off at 7.6 miles per hour.
Wow.
What's crazy is you're using the exact same effort in your swing.
Right.
But with that higher impact ratio, you get so much more ball speed.
Yeah.
And that translates directly to how far your putt rolls.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are actually quite a few factors that play a role in impact ratio.
I bet.
Yeah, things like how much you accelerate through the ball,
Okay.
the material of the putter face.
Like those grooves and polymer inserts?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The weight of the putter head also matters.
I can see that.
Heavier putters usually lead to higher impact ratios.
Interesting.
So a 390-gram putter compared to a 350-gram one.
Okay.
You wouldn't think it. But even how tight you grip the putter can have an effect.
Really?
Yeah, and of course the golf ball itself plays a part.
Mm-hmm.
There was an interesting study on this back in 2018
Oh, wow.
by the World Scientific Congress.
Okay.
You can find more details on that at the Ordinal Research website.
Got it.
But for today's deep dive, we wanted to zero in on one specific factor.
And that is?
The exact location where you strike the ball on the putter face.
Interesting.
Specifically those classic heel and toe misses.
Oh, yeah. Those are the worst.
I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we're also looking at what happens when you hit the ball high or low on the face.
Makes sense.
There was a fascinating 9-point grid test done back in 2018.
Okay.
It showed that the dead center of the putter face...
Like 5.5 on that grid?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
This is where you get the highest impact ratio
Mm-hmm.
and virtually zero loss of ball speed.
Okay.
But the further you move away from that sweet spot,
Mm-hmm.
the impact ratio tends to drop and the ball speed decreases.
So no surprise there, but it's good to see it confirmed, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is that low on the heel of the putter
Yeah.
often turns out to be the worst possible place to hit the ball.
Really?
Yeah, in one example, the impact ratio dropped by a whopping 11%.
11%. Wow.
Yeah, just from hitting it slightly off center.
That's crazy.
And this is a good point to mention face twist.
Oh, yeah. I've heard that term.
So that's how the putter face tends to rotate open or closed when you hit the ball off center.
Okay.
And it's all tied to something called the point of rotational equilibrium.
That's a mouthful.
I know, right? Think of it this way.
Okay.
When you hit the ball off center, the putter head wants to twist in your hands.
Right.
And that point of rotational equilibrium
Mm-hmm.
is where the putter designers try to minimize that twisting.
So they're trying to engineer it out.
Exactly. And it's usually just slightly inside the alignment line you see on your putter.
Interesting.
Okay, so let's dive into the details of the product testing we did this week.
Okay. Sounds good.
We use this incredible high-speed camera
Okay.
that captures everything at 1440 frames per second.
Wow. That's super high speed.
I know, right?
Mhm.
We wanted to see exactly what's happening at impact.
Yeah.
And to keep everything consistent, we had a robot deliver every single putt.
Really? A robot?
Yeah, a real putting robot.
That's so cool.
And we tested 9 different impact locations, all on the same putter. So let's start by looking at 3 key locations.
Okay.
The middle, the heel, and the toe of the putter face.
Makes sense.
We did an average of 6 putts at each location.
Got it.
Okay, so first hitting the ball right in the middle of the face.
Mm-hmm.
The average putter head speed was 3.56 miles per hour.
Okay.
And the speed was really consistent,
Mm-hmm.
only varying by 0.14 miles per hour.
Wow. That's tight.
I know, right? The impact ratio was a solid 1.69.
Okay.
Again, very little variation.
Mm,
Ball speed averaged 6.02 miles per hour.
got it.
The putter face only rotated open by 0.2 degrees.
Barely anything.
Yeah, and we saw a bit of forward spin, about 7.
Okay.
And the ball traveled an average distance of 17.4 feet.
Okay.
Now, just for context, we were testing on a really fast green,
Okay.
a stimp rating of 15.
Got it. Yeah. So those putts are going to roll out a long way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's move the impact point just 2 centimeters towards the heel.
Okay.
But we kept the average putter head speed almost the same
Yeah.
at 3.56 miles per hour. So the effort was the same, but look what happened. The impact ratio dropped to 1.62.
So not a huge drop.
No, but it was enough to cause the ball speed to decrease to 5.76 miles per hour. And the speed was slightly less consistent too, with a range of 0.3.
Okay.
The face also twisted, closed by an average of 0.66 degrees.
Interesting.
And that all resulted in a shorter putt.
Yeah. How much shorter?
It only traveled 15 feet 10 inches.
So almost a foot and a half shorter.
Yeah, and that's why you so often see putts come up short with those slight heel misses.
Makes sense.
Okay, now what about when we hit the ball on the toe?
Okay.
Again, 2 centimeters from the middle.
Got it.
Average putter head speed was 3.57 miles per hour.
So almost identical.
Right, very consistent.
Mhm.
Impact ratio was 1.63.
Okay. A little better than the heel.
Yeah, and ball speed was 5.82 miles per hour.
Okay.
The face twisted open by an average of 0.83 degrees.
Interesting.
And the putt went an average of 16 feet 6 inches.
Okay.
So still short, but not as short as the heel strike.
Right.
Now, the Quintic software lets us really visualize what's happening here.
Oh, cool.
So if we simulate a 17-foot putt,
Okay.
the center strike, which is shown in red, goes a little past the hole.
Mm-hmm.
But the heel strike in blue and the toe strike in green both end up short.
Yeah. By how much?
The toe strike is about 10 inches short,
10 inches.
and the heel strike is a whole foot and a half short.
Wow. That's a huge difference.
I know, right?
Wow.
And it all comes from what might seem like a pretty small mishit.
Yeah. It's amazing how much those little things matter.
Okay, so now let's see what happened when we hit the ball low on the putter face.
Okay.
So on the bottom part,
Mm-hmm.
again, these are averages from 6 putts at each location.
Got it.
So when we hit the ball on the bottom middle of the face,
Okay.
the putter head speed was still 3.55 miles per hour.
So pretty close to the center strike.
Right, but the impact ratio dropped to 1.63.
Interesting.
This led to a ball speed of 5.77 miles per hour,
Okay.
which is about a quarter of a mile per hour slower. And the average distance dropped to 15 feet 8 inches,
Wow.
compared to the 17 feet 4 inches with the middle strike.
Yeah. That's a big difference.
And things get even more dramatic when we move the impact to the bottom heel.
Oh, no.
Yeah, with the same putter head speed of 3.55 miles per hour.
Okay.
The impact ratio plummeted to 1.5.
Wow.
That's really low.
Yeah.
The ball speed was only 5.5 miles per hour.
Ouch.
Yeah, a drop of over half a mile per hour.
That's gotta hurt.
And the average distance suffered big time.
I bet.
It only traveled 14 feet 11 inches.
Yikes.
When we hit the ball on the bottom toe,
Okay.
the putter head speed was 3.53 miles per hour.
Mm.
And the impact ratio was 1.59.
Okay.
Ball speed was 5.63 miles per hour.
Got it.
And again, a noticeably shorter distance.
So consistently shorter when you hit it low.
Yeah.
Sure.
And the visualizations really bring this to life.
How so?
Even if we shorten the simulated hole to 16 feet,
Mm-hmm.
all those bottom strikes finish way short. It just goes to show how even a slightly low impact can really kill your distance.
I know. I always feel it when I kind of scoop at the ball.
Right.
It just doesn't go anywhere.
Exactly. This data really proved that feeling.
Okay.
Okay, so now let's move to the top section of the putter face.
Okay.
So those high hits,
Mm-hmm.
these numbers are based on 18 putts.
Okay. A larger sample size.
Yep.
Got it.
When we hit the ball high in the middle,
Okay.
we actually got an impact ratio of 1.69.
Wow. That's almost the same as the center middle strike.
I know, right?
Interesting.
And the average distance only dropped by about 4 inches.
Not bad at all.
Yeah, it seems like this particular putter is pretty forgiving for high center strikes.
Okay.
But when we move towards the edges on the top part of the face, we start to see bigger differences.
Makes sense.
The high heel strike had an impact ratio of 1.63,
Okay.
and the distance dropped by about 1.5 feet.
Okay, so getting worse.
Yeah, high toe strike had an impact ratio of 1.58,
Mm-hmm.
and the distance was about 1 foot shorter. Got it. Now here's an interesting twist.
Okay.
In our top face testing, the high toe actually did worse than the high heel in terms of distance.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive,
It is.
but it just goes to show that even those assumptions we make about mishits
Yeah.
aren't always accurate.
Right.
And it highlights how the putter design and the internal weighting can make a big difference. Okay? And the visuals for these top strikes show that the high middle hit in green still reaches that 17-foot 4-inch mark.
Okay.
But the high heel in blue and the high toe both finish short.
So again, reinforcing that sweet spot.
Yeah,
Okay.
So if we look at the data as a whole, one major takeaway that really stands out is
What's that?
those heel strikes are consistently the worst.
Yeah.
They resulted in the lowest impact ratios and the shortest distances.
Across the board.
Yep, no matter if you're hitting high, middle, or low, that heel strike just saps the energy from your putt.
I wonder why that is.
Well, the exact reasons can vary depending on the putter's design and how the weight is distributed.
Okay.
But it definitely makes you wonder if center-shafted putters might handle heel and toe hits differently.
I bet that's something putter manufacturers think about a lot,
Oh, yeah, for sure.
trying to figure out that perfect design.
Exactly. The goal is to have a putter that gives you a consistent and high impact ratio, no matter where you happen to hit the ball.
Yeah, the holy grail of putters.
I know, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's really important to remember that golfers often underestimate the impact of hitting high or low on the face.
I know, I do.
It's easy to think it's not a big deal.
Yeah, you just kind of brush it off.
Right.
Yeah.
But in our testing, we actually saw that in one case.
Mm-hmm.
The second worst place to hit the ball wasn't the high heel.
Oh, really?
It was the high toe.
Interesting.
It just goes to show you how much the putter design and internal weighting can influence the outcome.
Okay.
But the big picture message here is that consistency of ball speed is absolutely key for good putting.
Couldn't agree more.
In our testing, we saw almost a 2-foot difference in rollout. Yep, between a perfect center strike and a low heel strike.
Wow.
When you hit off center, you lose energy transfer,
Right.
and you get that twisting of the putter head.
Yeah, it's like hitting a baseball off the end of the bat.
Exactly, you feel it right.
Uh-huh.
All that jarring, and the ball just doesn't go anywhere.
It's the same idea with putting.
It really reminds me of what Tiger Woods used to say.
Yeah.
He was all about hitting the center of the face
Mm-hmm.
so he could judge the speed accurately.
Right.
He knew that consistent speed was the basis for good line selection.
Makes sense.
And his famous 2T drill,
Yeah.
that was all about finding that sweet spot over and over again.
Interesting.
And one more thing that's often overlooked,
What's that?
the sound of the strike.
Ah.
Listening to the sound can actually give you valuable feedback.
About where you hit it.
Exactly. During our testing, we heard very distinct sounds when the robot hit the ball off center.
Really?
Yeah, and often they were pretty unpleasant.
So your ears can tell you something's wrong.
All right, it's a good auditory cue. So how do you actually achieve that consistent ball speed we've been talking about?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question.
I know, right? Well, it boils down to the fundamentals of your putting stroke.
Okay.
Things like your posture,
Okay.
your stability,
Mm-hmm.
your balance,
Yeah.
having a repeatable stroke,
Right.
your setup at address,
Okay.
the length and lie angle
Yeah.
of your putter,
Right.
and even your eye position.
So many things to think about.
You know, it's a lot.
Uh-huh.
Even the best players in the world
Yeah.
might have tiny variations in their stroke.
Okay.
But the key is to consistently find the middle of that face.
That sweet spot.
Yep.
Got it.
And you know what?
What?
That consistency of impact location
Mm-hmm.
is so important
Yeah.
that it's actually one of the top 5 things we look at when we're fitting someone for a putter.
Oh, wow.
It's not just about how the putter looks or feels.
Right.
It's about where you're actually hitting the ball. Okay, so let's wrap up this deep dive into putter impact.
Sounds good.
We've learned a lot, haven't we?
Yeah, tons of great information.
First off, hitting the ball in the center is king.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you the best impact ratio and the most consistent distance.
Right.
Heel strikes are the biggest distance killers out there.
So avoid those at all costs.
And even those little misses off the sweet spot, whether
Yeah.
towards the heel toe, top, or bottom,
Mm-hmm.
they can have a surprisingly big effect on how far your putt rolls.
It's true.
I think those visualizations really help to understand that.
Yeah, they really do.
So here's something to think about during your own putting practice.
Okay. I'm listening.
How can you become more aware of where you're hitting the ball in the face?
Hmm.
And what small adjustments can you make to your setup or stroke
Yeah.
to help you find that center more consistently?
That's a great question.
Think about your own putting. You have any patterns? Do you tend to miss towards the heel or the toe?
Yeah, I've never really thought about it.
Well, hopefully this deep dive has given you a good foundation
It has.
to start paying closer attention to your impact
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully make some positive changes to your putting.
I'm ready to start rolling some putts.
So thank you for joining us for this deep dive into putter impact.
It's been fun.
I hope this data-driven information helps you become a better putter.
It definitely will.
Make sure you tune in next time for another deep dive into the data that can help you understand and improve your game.
Sounds good.
Until then, keep those putts rolling.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.